this is one of the fastest ways to stop blocking yourself from the things that you want. And it's actually quite simple, but so many people do not do it. So I'm going to be breaking down today some different things you can do to shift and get yourself out of your own way from calling in the things that you really want. And we're going to talk about this in the scheme of the main things that I support people with, which is purpose and finances, relationships, and also just mindset in general, okay? And so I apologize, right as I started filming, someone started like mowing or air blowing leaves. So if you can hear it, I'm sorry, but hopefully it's not too loud. So this is all about the power of your words. And you hear me talk a lot about thoughts on this channel because our thoughts become things, and the power of our mind dictates the way that we show up, you know, what we believe to be possible for us, what we believe to be true, and ultimately our actions all take place after the thoughts first. But this is specifically more about the words. I got a beautiful question from one of you, so thank you for sharing that and reaching out about how I could support. I'm so excited to dive into this. So the words we speak to ourselves either immediately open us up or close us off. And that is like my favorite way to simplify it, because think of it this way. If you want to create an experience or attract something and you are saying words that, like, look at my smile is already taking place because I'm already thinking of like the excitement behind the desire that I want to call in, right? So if I'm speaking from that elevated place and I'm speaking in possibility, then I'm immediately opening myself up to the infinite ways that it can come in. Conversely, when I'm speaking negatively and the thoughts are stuck in memories of the past mistakes, past failures, things that I'm still judging myself for, or shaming, or feeling guilty about, or limiting beliefs and doubts and all the reasons why I don't think I'm good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, or I'm not capable. All of those things immediately close me off. So whether I'm just thinking that thought or I'm actually verbalizing it and speaking it out loud, I am now blocking the simplicity of how things can actually show up, and I'm blocking the desire. And chances are you have probably been in a place before, you've probably been in both of these places where you have felt so excited and you've been speaking about something and sharing it or celebrating it or talking about what you're gonna do in a month, or you're excited about this plan or this big dream, right? And you're speaking from it from an elevated place. And the expansion, it's like heart opening. You're truly opening up to connect with it, to then receive it. And it allows you to be in a place where, like I said before, now I'm not so focused on the reasons why it can't happen or why I'm not good enough. And I'm not even focused on how it's gonna happen. I'm actually not really stuck up in my logical mind at all, because I'm truly in the emotional body, in the feeling body. And that is one of the biggest secrets and keys to our attraction and manifestation process. That's why you hear like the OGs, Neville Goddard, talk about acting as if and living from the wish fulfilled. So connecting to the feeling, the frequency of already having the things. And when you can allow your whole body to feel that, and you can already in the present moment be excited about what it's gonna be like, you are now aligning yourself with the corresponding reality. And simply in that act of being in the positive emotion, it's amazing how you shift what can come in and how quickly it can come in. Actually, moving to Mexico was the perfect example, because like I booked this trip a week or 2 weeks before I moved here for 6 months. Like I had no idea where I was gonna live. I tend to be aside from my first few trips, I tend to be a very sporadic traveler because I just get the feeling and the nudge and things align and I go with it. But it took a lot of inner work and trusting to get to that point for me. But before moving to Mexico, I had this opportunity to stay and kind of house sit for my dad for the month of November, and it's getting colder. Your girl hates the cold. I didn't want to be stuck there, and I knew just thinking of it that in my body everything like contracted and felt really closed off. I immediately felt like negative and kind of like depressed because it wasn't my highest excitement. It was still beautiful and positive, and I'm grateful, and had I needed that opportunity, it would have been like appreciated, right? But it wasn't my soul's highest excitement. So I want you to keep that in mind, because the things that light you up are usually your soul guiding you and trying to pull you where you're meant to be. And the trick is, if you talk yourself out of it and you don't go after it, then there's this disconnect. There's this really big discord. And in my case, had I stayed back in Canada for November, I knew I was gonna wake up every single day and be gloomy. And I knew I was gonna be like grumpy and not really like normal high vibe care. I wasn't gonna be feeling very satisfied. So I sat with it for a day, even though I kind of knew right away. And then I was like, what excites me? Do I want to settle and convince myself that I can be happier, convince myself that it's enough? Or do I want to think about and speak about what I actually want, which is to be somewhere hot. I want to be somewhere where I can settle. I was moving every month and every 3 months, every 6 months tops, pretty much for the last 5 years or something. So even though I do a good job of grounding myself, I felt fairly ungrounded, and I just wanted to be somewhere a little bit longer term. Mostly somewhere warm and lots of fresh fruit and stuff and nature. So I began speaking, I want to go here. I want to go back to Mexico. I loved it before. I have friends here. I have connections. Hosting a retreat here in January. Like, all the things seem to be really aligned. And I could have continued to stay stuck in the negative thoughts and voices, but then I started to focus on the positives. At that time, I had just finished paying off an immense amount of debt, so I actually had like nothing in my bank account, no savings. I had been living off credit cards for quite a while, and anything that came into my business, I immediately invested it back into my business, into more coaches, or into my own healing and the quantum work and mentorship and all that. So like, I've just been circulating money, not really saving it. So I didn't even know, and my logical mind could have kicked in, my scarcity, my self-doubt, all the things. But I knew that if it feels good, it's meant for me, and I'm not meant to feel miserable. So I'm gonna follow the things that light me up and lift me up and pull me forward to be able to create more, be able to share more, be able to just like stay in my heart and spread that to everyone I come in contact with, right? So as you're following with me, you can already see that there's always like the different trajectories and options that we can take, and the words we speak to ourselves truly impact whether we open up or we block it. Okay? And so I stayed very high vibe in this place of knowing things are gonna work out. I decided that night, I really wanna go to Mexico. I'm gonna look for places. I was like, I posted something that night, had a few people respond. It didn't feel good, felt kind of sketchy. And I woke up in the morning, I was like, it's gonna be perfect. Like, the most beautiful place is gonna align. And I wanted it in a specific area, but I felt like it would be out of my budget, and didn't know if it was even possible. But I was like, I don't want to speak the blockage. I want to speak the abundance, the possibility, the opportunity. And so I focused on that of like, it's out of my hands. It's not my job to force this to happen and control it. I know what I want, I'm asking for it, and I'm maintaining alignment with it and speaking the things that match that. And like 2 hours later, I had a message from the perfect person in the exact area I wanted, fully surrounded by the jungle so I can walk around and just be in the trees, nature. I just got out from a walk, saw the cutest animals. And the next day, or like 2 days later, I had to send a deposit, and I just kept trusting, like, I'm signing on this lease and everything's gonna work out so I can stay here. And then a client came in and it covered the cost, and all these things that have allowed me to then take that step. And when I look at anything in my life that I have created and co-created with God, is that I had to be open to it being possible. And every time I've been stuck in struggle or lack or distance and I've not had the desire, it's because I personally am more focused on the negatives. I'm more focused on the limitations. I'm more focused on the reasons why I don't think it can happen, or I don't believe I'm deserving of it. So at the very base level, it truly does come down to what you're thinking and speaking each day, right? If I was continuing to speak, it's not possible, I don't have the money yet, I don't really know where I'm going yet, blah, 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 I'm not worthy of it. If I were continuing to ruminate on mistakes I'd made, which I was doing for a little bit, I was stuck in that self-judgment spiral, we could say. If I would have continued to stay in that, I wouldn't have taken the first action of looking at places. I wouldn't have started reaching out about places. I wouldn't have believed it were possible to find a place in the right location in my budget. Every single thing was like a snowball effect, and none of that would have happened if I didn't take action. And the action only happened because I had the beliefs and the thoughts and the language first. So it truly is all interconnected, right? When we look at the power of something you're saying, if you are saying, I don't deserve it, or I can't do this, you are instantaneously not only shutting yourself off from the opportunities, but you're instantaneously tearing yourself down. And that's why it feels so heavy. That's why it doesn't feel good to say those things, to speak those things, to think those things. That's why when we're in that place, we feel worse. Bless you. He just sneezed 8 times, I think. You feel really uncomfortable in that place because it's not your soul's truth. So that's probably one of the easiest ways to start gaining control. I mean, mindfulness is huge. I credit that for so much of my journey because as a chronic overthinker, hyper anxious human being, when I started this a decade ago, my mindset was insanely negative and constant, and it was really stressful and a horrible place to be. So mindfulness was the beginning point, and then sort of the different reprogramming practices, all the things that I teach my students inside Thrive to step by step reprogram where we have the negative beliefs or the negative habits, the negative tendencies of speaking to ourselves a certain way, shifting that piece by piece so that you can replace it with something that actually is more aligned and does feel better. But the mindfulness and the awareness, and lastly is truly starting to, whatever higher power you believe in, I believe in God, but I used to not. So I used to believe in the universe or whatever as the creator. That was like my stepping stone. I needed that first. So whatever your higher power is you believe in, just asking yourself, like, would the creator speak to me this way? Would the creator tell you, you can't do it? You're not good enough. You're horrible. You're the worst. You don't deserve that. Why are you even trying? No, the creator would not. The creator created you perfectly for exactly what you desire, exactly what you're being called to do or create or have or become. it's learned behavior to speak to ourselves that way. Unfortunately, we learn it from our parents because they're speaking to us that way, or they're speaking to themselves that way, and then we pick up on it. So I observed so much negativity from my parents, so much criticism and judgment, a lot of which was them judging themselves really harshly, constantly criticizing everything about themselves, a lot of criticism towards other people, and maybe not insane amounts towards me or my brother, probably like normal amounts, whatever normal is. But because I observed so much of that to themselves and to others, that still seemed normal. And so that became programmed into my subconscious, and I believed in all these limitations as well, right? And so it's been so healing for me, and I highly recommend for you as well, is starting to look at like, whose narrative is this? The negative voice that's speaking and blocking things, is that actually yours? Where does that actually come from? It's beautiful when you catch it and you go, damn, that's my mom, or like, that's my dad talking. That is not my truth. I believe this is possible, or I believe I can do it. I believe I can give it a shot, right? So the voice that's telling you you can't, or that doubt and fear and heaviness that's pulling you down, is not coming from you. So if you can separate and see it's coming from this parent or this teacher or this coach or this friend said something and like, now I really don't believe in my ability to do it. Or it came from a mistake and a failure and something not working out the way you wanted, and so you've created a narrative that you're not good enough or you can't do it now, right? But if we can separate that and push that aside for a moment, and then feel a connection to a loving higher power, a loving creator, and go, is this the ultimate truth? Are you telling me, God, that I'm unworthy of this, that I'm horrible, that I can't do it? Or are you helping pull me forward and say, hey, I'm preparing these things for you, and I really want you to experience them because they're meant for you. So be kind to yourself, give yourself a break, be compassionate, you're human, we all make mistakes, and take the leap. Come on over here, right? I'm ready for you. I think shifting our own internal narrative to parent ourselves the way that we needed and speak to our inner child the way that we always needed, or see God speaking to us as the child in the loving, the unconditionally loving way we always needed, truly opens up like a portal for creation of the things that you really want. And that's why all these things I've mentioned here are parts of my process and my Thrive methodology, because it all coincides together. As I said, the thoughts, the words we're speaking, the actions we're taking, the habits they compile into, the mindfulness practices, the meditation, the journaling, the connecting to a higher power, the inner child work, to really start looking at like, I'm treating myself very poorly. And if I were looking at a child, or even if I were looking at someone else in this place, I would likely be very supportive and kind to them. And I would likely tell them, it's okay, you can do this, you're gonna get there, don't worry about it. And yet, why am I speaking to myself with this horrible negativity and this judgment and so much pain and projection of limitation? So the way we become truly limitless is by getting rid of the frickin' programming, like the negative programming that's weighing us down, and returning to seeing ourselves as divine, seeing ourselves as connections and as one with Source, so that we realize that like, you are not the stories that you're telling yourself, and you're actually capable of so much more. So it really does start with all of that, and every time you shift that story, even if it's a tiny bit, like you might not be able to jump to the full opposite, which is why I personally am not a firm believer in positive affirmations unless you're doing all the other things I've also mentioned, because you can't just say the opposite affirmation and think you're going to believe it. You won't. Your subconscious is not going to believe it at all, because it spent so long living in this one that you could repeat this one daily, but it doesn't believe it to be true because this has been reaffirmed for ages, right? I forget why I brought up positive affirmations. But it's in the bigger processes that then you can start to believe the new narrative. That's why I brought it up, because maybe you need a baby step, a stepping stone. I might not be able to speak and fully believe that I'm the greatest at this thing when I have all these stories of my mistakes or my failures, but I can speak a middle step of I'm getting better. I'm getting closer every single day. I'm open. Remember from the beginning, like I'm open and excited. I'm open to the reality or to the fact that this can become my reality. This can open up for me. This can show up, that I can create that. Start speaking in more uplifting, positive ways, and you immediately pull yourself up to match it. It is like your higher self is calling you forward and saying like, hey, I'm already here, come on, right? Join me. And you have to bridge the gap because your current self is down here speaking in another way, living a different reality. So if you want these things and you want to feel the way this version of you feels, then it's those baby steps, step by step. How can I feel a little bit more connected today? How can I feel a little bit more positive, better? What can I speak to myself in the morning or in the mirror that's going to make me feel more elevated and empowered to take on the day, right? And lather, rinse, repeat the next day. So I hope this was helpful, and I'm so excited to hear about how this plays out in your journey and in your own processing moving forward. If this is something you're looking for more support with and a more structured process to follow, my 90-Day Thrive program is the place to be. I take you every single day. There's a video or there's text, and I'm bringing you step by step, literally through this whole process of releasing the old programming, uncovering it first, releasing stuff, rebuilding so that you feel confident in who you are, and so that you can start to actually feel like, yes, I can do these things and I'm ready to, even though it might be uncomfortable and I might still have some fear or doubt, I'm gonna take the step closer and I'm gonna start putting myself out there, right? And then the third step and the third month is all about truly realigning to your higher self so that you can start to just magnetize it, because like I said, the things that you desire are meant for you. They're in your heart for a reason. So when you realize that, you can let go of a lot of the force and a lot of the hustle and the proving and the I need to make it happen. It's like, no, I just need to align with it because it's meant for me. It's destined for me. And when I allow myself to be in that alignment, magic happens. Things are flowing. It just appears and I'm like, whoa, how did this get here? How did I end up in Mexico? Like all these things that align so perfectly, or working with elephants, or doing a book collab, like all these things I had wanted. I could have been stuck in negative stories about it. I could have been stuck overthinking and forcing it to happen, but I focused on just being the alignment of it and speaking the possibility, knowing that it was possible and knowing that it was meant for me, that I was ready for it. And then it just fell into place in the most beautiful, seamless way. So give all of these things a try. I've got a free masterclass that teaches the 3 steps and the 3 secrets to getting unstuck, but then the 3-step Thrive process. If you want to learn more, you can click the link down below. It's also written on the side here. And I will see you again very soon. Sending so much love to you.